Hello and welcome to the Browns Blitz. Today is Wednesday, April 29th. This is episode number 346. I'm your host, Rod Bloom. Joining me tonight is my brother, Jeff. Hey, Jeff, how's it going?
It's going good, Rod. Been a very full week.
It has. Yeah, definitely. Quite a bit going on. And we're going to talk about some news. We're going to talk about, UDFAs. I kind of feel like, like we kind of almost left some unfinished business on the last show because we spent a lot of time going through all the guys. I was going to ask you more questions about some of that stuff, but we had been going a while. So,
Right.
So we'll see if we get back into any of the draft picks or not. But yeah, I want to first of all thank everybody who tuned in and caught us on that Sunday podcast. We appreciate you guys, and just want to give a shout out to the rest of the Fanatical Elves Network, which we are a part of. You can find our work on YouTube, and we're also building up on TikTok. So it's at. Shoot, I should have looked this up, Jeff. What is it? At Elves.
You're asking me about social media?
Yeah, I'll look it up. I'll get back to you guys, but it's at.
All right.
I'll find it here in a second. But anyways, I'll put that out. But we appreciate you guys. So, let's get on with things here, Jeff. First of all, we're gonna start with the way we like to start our shows out, which we kind of been lacking here occasionally, but we're going to make it 2 weeks in a row, or not even 2 weeks. We just did this, 3 days ago?
Yeah.
Sunday. Yeah, we're going to go with our Blitz beverages, Jeff. And I understand you have something new that you want to share with us. I know how it is buying 6-packs all the time, so you got to repeat sometimes. So
right. Well, as everybody should know by now, I'm non-alcoholic, so it kind of limits what I can buy. But I'm constantly looking for new stuff, and I came across a new brewery, at least new to our area, called Best Day Brewing. They're out of Sausalito, California.
Oh.
And they specialize in non-alcoholic beers.
Nice.
So yeah, I was able to get a variety pack of their stuff. So I'm going to try 4 different beers of theirs. So the one I have tonight is their Kolsch style. If you can see that.
Oh yeah, nice.
Okay. Yeah. So this is it's just a light pilsnery type of beer that. It's pretty refreshing. It would be nice on a hot summer day, which today is not. Far from it.
Yeah.
But I had to start somewhere, so I thought this would be a good one to start with. I mean, usually with a Kolsch, you get some sort of a fruit flavor. Am I right, Rod? I'm not really picking up.
I think so. I'll be honest. I haven't done a lot of Kolsch's, so yeah. I don't think that's necessarily the case, Jeff. The Joe Thomas beer that everybody knows about is a Kolsch, I believe. So, and
it's
that's
a little malty,
not fruity. Yeah.
But yeah,
cool.
Yeah, something different. So for once, I'm not talking about the exact same thing.
That's nice. Nice job. Nice job. So I'm
drinking a few more options.
Excellent. I'm drinking a kind of a summery beer too. Great Lakes Haze Craft Hazy IPA. Time to go to some of the summer stuff, even though I got some of the heavier stuff still out there. But I'll try to give you guys something interesting. But everybody knows Great Lakes, probably that's watching the podcast. So
Sure.
Good to get into a hazy IPA. Tastes good tonight. So nice. Yeah. All right. Now, as far as YouTube, TikTok, and X, you guys can find the Fanatical Elves. It's at Elves Network. Okay, so you can help us out by subscribing on YouTube and TikTok. We're trying to build those up, so it doesn't cost you anything if you want to support us. We appreciate you guys, but just by being here with us, commenting, watching, we love talking Browns. So, and that's what we're here for.
Great turnout for the last show, by the way. As you know,
we did
a draft show, right?
We did, yeah. So thanks to everybody who caught that show.
Yep.
And great turnout. And
Jeremy has a Yangling.
Yingling, yeah. Nice job, Jeremy. Yangling. Nice job. Yeah. Okay, let's get on with some Browns news, Jeff. And we talked about the draft last week, kind of, getting excited about the season, and all these A grades for the draft, 4 first rounders, excellence, and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then today, Mary Kay and JW come out with the word that Deshaun Watson is the leader in the clubhouse to be the starting quarterback. Wah, wah. Life as a Browns fan. We don't want this. Okay.
Yeah. They've been trying to soften us up for this for a while, Rod. We talked to Ken Carmen weeks ago about how they've been rehabilitating him as a starter. It's not exactly out of left field.
Yeah. I saw a comment from Greg Sopko on X, and I was kind of thinking along the same lines, which Greg kind of warned me about thinking the way he does. But he said that maybe they're trying to pump him up for a trade.
I mean, yeah.
We could hope. We could hope.
No one's trading for him this year. All you can hope is that he plays well enough that somebody wants him at some point.
Yeah.
Or that the Browns are able to somehow recoup some kind of an asset. Even if that means that he leaves as a free agent and you get a comp pick or
right.
something. It's better than just walking away from that disaster with zero. But we're gonna have to suffer through watching him play for a few games at least.
Yeah, no,
however long he can stay healthy.
Yeah, there's that, and I feel like this year should be about finding out what we have in Shedeur Sanders. Otherwise, I feel like
we will eventually
the season. Yeah, we will. But other people are going to say, "Well, you're wasting the season if you're not getting wins." I understand that too. Do you think there could be a plan in place to try to start Watson until Sanders is more up to speed with the new scheme and I don't know. That Monken could end up thinking that he wants Sanders to have a little bit more time before he's out there, and that's why Watson would start.
Well, I mean, if you're asking me what this conspiracy theory is,
I
mean, it's that when they fired Kevin Stefanski, it was because the organization felt that they were better than the record indicated, that they could get more out of the players that they had if they had better coaching, right? That's why you move on from the coach and the staff, right?
Right.
So the conspiracy theory is that, okay, now you go out and you interview coach candidates and you say, we have this former Pro Bowl quarterback on our roster that's got 1 year left on his
long time.
Right. But he's got 1 year left on his deal. We haven't got much from him to this point. But we want to find out if we missed something over the last 4 years. How do you feel about coaching him up and trying to resurrect his career? And Todd Monken probably sat there and said, "Hey, yeah, sure, why not? I'm all in. Let's do it."
Well,
right?
and we think he's going to be so good now that we're going to bench our other Pro Bowl quarterback to play
Probably,
him.
yeah.
I say that in jest.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and no offense to Shador, the Pro Bowl's gotten to be a joke at this point because guys just don't want to go. But yeah, I didn't want to spend a ton of time on that, Jeff. It's kind of crazy to be talking about who's going to start when we're in April. But
I mean,
just kind of a bummer.
Plays quarterback for us, whoever plays quarterback for us, I don't think is really going to make a whole lot of difference this year. You know, if it means we win 5, 6, 7, 8, however many games, this year is really about all these young kids, and the quarterback room right now for me is just a placeholder. There's a chance, yes, that Shador could turn into something for us. There's probably almost as good a chance that Taylor Green could turn into something for us. They're all question marks, right?
Yeah.
But really, this year, if you talk about wasting the season, what would be a waste of the season is if we didn't get all these kids a lot of playing time, so that we can figure out this roster going forward. You know, what are our building blocks? What's an offense look like that can actually move the football? Even if you have just below average quarterback play, you know, you can't have a putrid offense from top to bottom. You know, at least if the rest of the pieces are decent, now you can start to think about, okay, let's plug in a decent quarterback next year, wherever that guy's going to come from.
Yeah. You were talking record briefly. Our friend of the show, Emery Hunt, was on the radio recently saying essentially he could see the Browns winning 10 games this year. I'm not trying to name drop. We love having Emery on, and he's a great guy, and he makes time for us, you know, to come on the show, and just a great guy. He firmly believes that. You know, I messaged him today, and he's like, yeah, I really believe this could happen. So, I guess we'll see. I mean, I think.
Well,
obviously, it depends on contributions.
Last year,
go ahead.
I was going to say last year the range for us last year when we were trying to guess how many wins was somewhere between 3 and 9 or 10.
Yeah.
So you're always going to have a huge range like that, I think.
Yeah. I mean, and 10 wins isn't what it used to be. 10 and 7, you know, to me is a little different from 10 and 6.
It's just above average.
Yeah. So yeah, but we'll see. So
look, there's plenty of talent on the team now. You've built what should be a serviceable offensive roster. It really all boils down to, do you get average quarterback play? If you get average quarterback play, I think you've got a chance of winning because you've got such a good defense. We know things are always going to go sideways. They just do for everybody. You know, you're going to have injuries. You're going to have issues here and there. But can you go out and compete week in and week out with this being a very, very young roster with a new coaching staff? There's certainly some adversity, but is it possible? Yeah, it's absolutely possible. Probability-wise, maybe that's a bit of a stretch.
You might feel like that, but I mean, some teams turn it around with a first-year head coach. You never know. You just
right. Usually with a franchise quarterback, though.
This is true. Okay, we are going to blow up the Deshaun Watson talk and move on to to some positive stuff. Hey, that's probably all the sound effects I'll use.
All right, I was going to say we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel sound effects.
We're breaking them out. Yeah. The Browns signed fullback Michael Burton, Jeff. This has been a couple days, I think, or a day or two ago. 34 years old. He's been around. 6 foot, 247 pounds. He's played for 7 teams. But this guy's almost always available. Obviously knows how to block, but I mean, the guy's he appears to be a pretty decent receiver. Can do some other things too. Can carry the ball a little bit.
Yeah, low volume. I mean,
Yeah.
but low volume throughout his career.
Oh yeah, yeah. I wouldn't. I wouldn't expect him to get 10 carries or anything in a
No,
game. That's not
no,
why you
no,
have him.
no.
But
In the season would be more likely.
right, right. That's not why he's here. But
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
but he could do it to mix things up, on a rare occasion.
Yeah.
But he seems to have decent hands, so he might have be able to receive the ball occasionally. But the 247 pounds you got to like, and I know he's 34, but he's been healthy. I think what I saw, he's played in at least 15 games. I think every season of his career or something like that, or pretty
Yeah.
close to it. So,
Yeah.
it
The,
seems to be a lot to like.
the stat I saw is that for me is telling is that Todd Monken used a fullback on 41% of his offensive snaps in 2025. So that tells you that he really schemes around a guy like that. And the way
Yeah.
we've addressed that really since Johnny Stanton was with big defensive players or big offensive linemen. And Nick Harris had that role for a while. And last
Yeah.
couple of years, Aiden Huntington, they've used defensive line guys or whatever for the few times that they needed a fullback. If it's going to be 41% of your offensive plays, then I guess you can afford to roster a specialist, right?
Well, it's been fun seeing these big, offensive, defensive linemen play the fullback spot.
Right.
But you'd rather have a guy who actually knows exactly what he's doing out there. I think when it's that high of volume, especially, right?
Well, yeah, that's the key for me. I mean, if it's that high of volume, guys can be coached up to do it if it's an occasional play. But if it's going to be something that they're really relying on that frequently, then yeah, you want a guy who's more of a career professional at that job.
Yeah, but I mean, we've seen the Nick Harris complete whiff on a block and things like that, and that's going to happen when you have guys coming out there that aren't used to doing it. So it takes a roster spot. Which, when we're talking our 53, it'll be interesting, in a few months, it'll be interesting to see where that comes from.
Right, exactly. Does it mean one less receiver? Does it mean one less offensive lineman? Does it mean one less defensive player?
Yeah.
Where does that roster spot come from? At least on the initial 53.
Yeah.
If they choose to keep him.
Right. So MJ Emerson signs with the Saints, Jeff. Were you surprised that he signed elsewhere?
Well, I mean, we saw something from Barry recently that his dad was making noise about things not coming together with the Browns. So I was kind of holding out some hope still that after the draft they could revisit that. I guess the Browns probably made it pretty clear to him that they were going in another direction. He needs to get a chance to play outside, and he probably wasn't going to get a chance to do that here.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's kind of interesting because then the Browns did not draft a corner, but we got some corners to talk about in the a little bit later in the UDFAs and camp invites. So we'll get to that. So I wanted to bring up Brendan Sorsby, Jeff. I went round and round with this on X already, so I kind of really just wanted to get your thoughts on it because it's kind of interesting because we really don't have the details yet and we don't know what's going to happen. So it's just all kind of hypothetical right now.
Right.
He's voluntarily sought treatment for gambling addiction. It sounds like he placed thousands of small bets, is my understanding. This plays into a couple things for me. It's how much the NFL pushes gambling. All their advertisers are gambling, but don't gamble.
Right.
Oh, gamble, but don't gamble.
Right.
So, I kind of feel like they owe somebody like this something, not necessarily a job, but help. and then, he's got a lot going on, Sorsby, with, there's, he's got suits, I think, with UC over leaving, and then there's going to be suits over the money with Texas Tech and all this stuff. And what it comes down to is, depending on what happens, he could end up declaring himself for the
supplemental draft.
Supplemental draft. Thank you. Here, which would, if the NFL holds one, which I guess would depend if there are players that want to be in it or not. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but if they hold one, is usually June or July, typically, I think, is what I saw. So
July or August, somewhere in there,
yeah. So my question, on X was if he declares for this supplemental draft, do the Browns have an interest in him? Are you interested in him? And it's not, it's not, do we want him? Because there's not enough information right now to know if we want him. I don't think. I think you want to know more about the gambling. I think you want to know more about what happened and where he's at and that. And then I think then you're talking about what kind of bid you're placing and all kinds of things. So just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on the whole situation, and a possible opportunity to get a guy who may have been a top 10 pick in the 27 draft and via another route.
Yeah. I think the conjecture is that had he gone to Texas Tech and balled out this year, he probably would have been a top 10 pick in next year's draft, right?
Yeah.
But that's not happening. So how do you evaluate the player knowing that you just have to go off of his Cincinnati film now?
Which isn't bad.
And it was good at times, but I don't think it justifies a first-round pick. I mean, if he had come out in this year's draft, he might have been the third or fourth quarterback taken. Second or third round, maybe, I think. Just my opinion based on what I saw.
Third,
I mean, he's certainly has the upside. He has the measurables. He has the arm, the wheels. He can do it all.
Yeah, he's got the arm, the size, and the wheels. That you want.
Just have to look at who he's done it against.
That's true.
So, it's going to be a hard evaluation, and I think if he does end up in the supplemental draft, it really depends on what you have to give up to get him. If nobody jumps on him in the first round, I'm trying to remember how the supplemental draft works in terms of seeding and so on. I mean, it mirrors the April draft in the first round, and I don't remember if it changes in the second round or what. But
I thought it just mirrored the draft all the way through, but
it's been years since anybody of consequence was in the supplemental draft. So maybe that's how we got Bernie Kosar, right? I think Josh Gordon was supplemental too, right? So
right.
So it's intriguing. I just think it's a really hard evaluation to decide how much you're willing to invest in him. It could pay off really, really well, or you could really lose a pick for not a lot, depending on what his availability looks like.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of the question is, I doubt anybody would give up a first round pick for him. Question is somebody willing to give up a second or a third for him? And if that happened to be the Browns, then it's what do you do with your roster?
Right.
Because then you're, then you got a lot of quarterbacks on the roster again.
Yeah. I mean, the assuming he's a top 10 pick, and assuming that the teams evaluate him that way and say, in 27, we would have definitely given up a top 10 pick for him. If the Browns are still picking sixth, he would have to get past the Cardinals and the Jets, or vice versa. The Jets
in any given round,
right, So would the Jets be willing to say, okay, We have Geno Smith, Cade Klubnik, and Bailey Zappi right now.
And possibly Russell Wilson.
You're right. Well, maybe.
I've heard.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
If that helps. If that helps.
Would we be willing to invest in a fourth entity? And how do we split those? It's all the problems that the Browns have with having 4 quarterbacks on the roster, right? That you want to look at, right? The Cardinals are the same situation. They've got the veteran in Jacoby Brissett, and then they drafted a young guy in Carson Beck, and they've got Gardner Minshew as their depth piece. So, Look, I don't know at what level would their scenarios and the Browns scenarios line up with plugging in another rookie quarterback who might have more upside. Does he have more upside than Carson Beck and Cade Klubnik? I think so. But it's complicated with the gambling allegations and stuff. That complicates it. Right?
They took Carson Beck in the 2nd or 3rd round, though. They're not just going to
third round. I think.
Third, yeah. They're not just going to give up on him.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky situation. It'll be interesting to see how over time. What value people place on him.
Yeah,
I feel bad for the kid, really, because
I do.
Another instance, much like Drew Aller and a few others who really had a great opportunity, and through circumstances aren't gonna.
Yeah, we got some
Jeremiah Smith.
Jeremiah Smith. It's kind of interesting. The 27 mocks are rolling out, and people have Jeremiah Smith going 5th or 6th, 4th, 5th, or 6th. And I'm thinking, I don't know if a team's sitting high and they have a quarterback, I could see him going 2nd or 3rd. It wouldn't surprise me.
I wrote this question down regarding the 27 draft, and this is early, but if you're the Browns and you're sitting there with the 5th or 6th pick in the draft. Because we've won, again, 5, 6, 7, 8 games, whatever it is, right? You're in the top half of the first round, right? And it would have to be pretty high. So that's why I said like 5-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood. And the top quarterbacks have already gone off the board. Maybe you've got the third, 4th, or 5th best quarterback in the class, and Jeremiah Smith hasn't been drafted yet. Do you pass on Jeremiah Smith to take another shot at a quarterback in 27? That's going to be a real.
You better love
conundrum.
That quarterback. You better love quarterback because
you absolutely.
People throw around generational. Jeremiah Smith is generational, and you don't pass on Jeremiah Smith because you drafted 2 quarterbacks or 2 wide receivers this draft either.
Right.
That's a guy you take, unless you are damn sure you got the right quarterback.
Yeah.
Because that's a pick guys actually do get fired over.
Right. And I'm sure 31 other teams feel the same way. So he could seriously complicate the top part of the draft next year.
He could. I mean, depending on how the draft lines up and which teams need QBs, I could see him going, easily going 2nd or 3rd. I mean, you got to figure whoever the best quarterback is going to go first. But Jeremiah Smith could easily go 2nd or 3rd.
I mean, if Carnell Tate went 4th, Jeremiah Smith could certainly go 2nd.
Oh yeah. So is Green the only quarterback that'll see 27? I think that depends how Shador does this season.
Yeah.
I
agree.
Sound effects. Well, Jeremy, I don't want to kill everybody with the sound effects on one show, but I will try to work some in on future shows. Okay.
Right. Yeah. I think Taylor Green's going to be fun just to see the unconventional ways in which they use him. The project of making him into an NFL quarterback is probably multi-seasonal. But as far as being able to get value from the pick, I think they can do that week one.
I
Just
think
the
so.
athleticism will let you deploy him in unconventional ways that will be absolutely a blast to watch.
Yeah, I'll just say that some people were really excited about a 5th-round pick in the last draft. There's going to be some people really excited in a different way about a 6th-round pick this year. And when that guy comes on the field, people are going to go kind of crazy because it's going to be wild to see how he is utilized.
You're not going to have to wait 8 or 10 weeks to see him play.
I don't think so. No,
he's going to be on the field week one. I have a very strong feeling.
Yeah. Hey, Toolman, we got some interesting UDFAs. Yeah, we're going to talk about those here in just a couple minutes. Jeremy, I don't know what that's in reference to. That kid with gambling will probably have a rough year, but if the NFL doesn't see him as ready, the UFL. Yeah, I think he's going to end up in. Well, yeah, I think he'll end up in the NFL.
He could end up playing somewhere else for a year.
Yeah, Jeremy agrees. Let's see here. And these guys are talking about QB. Okay. Thanks for the comments, guys. Let's see. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. And we're going to get into our UDFAs. All right, and we are back with more of the Browns Blitz here on the Fanatical Elves Network. And Jeff, we've got some UDFAs to talk about. And as we generally do, we are not going to go over the entire list because there's a lot of them.
Yeah. There are 15 UDFAs and 7 camp invites.
Yeah. So if it's okay, let me kind of go through a few guys, and then I know you've got notes, and then you can come back and cover specific guys you want to talk about. So I'm just going to kind of go through this in order and just go over. I got 4 or 5 guys I want to talk about and ask you about. So the Browns signed 2 UDFA running backs. It seemed to me that T.J. Harden out of SMU, 6'2", 218, is probably the guy who's got the best shot at a potential roster spot. I'm thinking probably practice squad, but I mean, it looks like he runs pretty well. I don't know. He's a bigger guy, more north-south probably, but
he's a straight-ahead runner.
Yeah. I mean, probably more one cut than a guy who's going to juke you to death. But
I was trying to remember the guy's name that I was always a fan of every year. Kelly, John Kelly.
John Kelly, yeah.
John Kelly, yeah. Similar. I mean, a little bit bigger, but similar kind of running style.
I would say so. I would say so. He seems like a similar type player. I think he would come in and play hard and get the tough yard for you and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But he's not gonna fancy it up at all. You know.
Yeah.
He's not going to make you forget about any of the great running backs we've had. But I think he's a guy who could fill in if needed. Davin Booth is a little bit smaller guy, 5'9", 192 out of Mississippi State. So
I would just say that Booth is probably a little bit more likely to see the roster this year because he's the only other guy like that we have besides Dylan Sampson. I mean, the rest of our guys, Raheem Sanders, Amani Marshall, are in that same mold, of the big back. The 3-down guy with some speed and elusiveness. Booth and Sampson are it on the roster at this point. So I'd say there's a good chance that he is on the practice squad if Sampson's healthy. If something happens to Sampson, we could see him play.
Well, that makes sense. The wide receivers, Jeff. I don't know. These guys are all Smurfs. 5'8", 5'7", and 5'6". I mean, I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, are all these guys running 4.2s or what? I looked at their height and weight, and I'm like, I mean, I know Aaron Anderson out of LSU. I know he put up some good numbers. I think in 24, but he's 5'8", 198. You know, he's got to be solidly built. But the other two guys, I mean, Janela Dupree out of Jackson State, 5'6", 157. That's smaller than me. I mean, I would get killed if I played in the NFL.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Got to be a tough dude. I imagine he's a really tough dude.
He's got to be tough. I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm old enough to remember Ice Cube McNeil and what he did on kickoffs.
Guys were smaller back then.
Probably bigger than this guy.
Well, he was about 140. But guys were smaller in the league, a little bit smaller in the league back then.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, with the new rules and kickoffs, I think the Browns are probably doing what they do a lot of times with certain positions where they're just throwing quantity at it, and they're saying, okay, we're going to look at a whole bunch of guys, and figure out who can give us the best shot here. But realistically, I mean, you've got Gage Larvadain, you've got Luke Floria, guys that were here last year. I don't know how many more of them you can realistically look at.
I know. Well, I guess if nothing else, it gives these guys a shot to potentially shine. And I mean, it's funny to think that we're having wide receivers and to maybe catch on with another team.
I mean, Floria was a camp darling last year, right? And then he got a concussion, I think, like in the last week or something. Tough little guy. Andrew Berry just has an affinity for these guys for some reason, and you know we're going to see a whole bunch more of them. But right now, I would like to see a couple more big-bodied guys as options as well, and we just don't have a lot there. Other than we drafted Denzel Boston, we have Cedric Tillman. That's about the extent of it that we have. Guys over 6 foot.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe we're trying to recreate the Clayton and Duper years in Miami or something.
Maybe. I mean, I would. Funny as it sounds, I would have been good with them taking another receiver later if they had just an abundance of picks, another big guy later, just to bring in.
Yeah.
I mean, apparently all the big guys are taken by all the other teams, so we're stuck with the little guys. But I
mean, there was like 100 receivers and tight ends drafted this year or something. It was some ludicrous number that we've never approached before. It was like 47 or something. Pass catchers that were drafted this year is an all-time high. So
there's probably only like 200 that weren't drafted.
Right. They're probably all under 5'8".
Yeah, probably. So Jeff, I'm gonna skip the offensive tackle right now. I'll let you talk about him if you want. I want to go to defensive end. Logan Fano, 6'5", 252, and we know he's Spencer's brother. You told me that he's got some guaranteed money.
He's got some significant guaranteed money.
Yeah, from what I heard, he was. It sounded like he was kind of expected to be drafted, maybe like
mid to late rounds.
Yeah, fifth round, somewhere in there. So and you were pretty vocal in wanting a defensive end drafted. Thinking that the Browns were going to go that direction. They passed on a lot of guys you liked, taking a lot of offensive players and trading down and things. So, they bring in Logan, and they bring in Tyreek Sapp out of Florida, 6'2", 273, who didn't have a great numbers year in 25. From what I saw, he put up some good numbers in 24, but in 25, I don't think he had the team around him, and his numbers kind of suffered because of that. But I think it sounds like he could have been a pretty high pick if he could have come out after 24. So that's a guy that I've kind of got a star by.
Yeah.
But it's not like he's going to be handed a job over Logan Fano.
Yeah.
And then they've got another guy. I can't read my own writing.
Corday Sidnor.
Corday Sidnor, yeah, 6'4", 264 out of Vanderbilt, and
really almost an Isaiah McGuire clone.
I'm sorry,
almost an Isaiah McGuire clone.
Isaiah McGuire. Okay, I saw somebody suggesting that guy could potentially move inside. I mean, he would have to beef up a bit to move inside, but to work for a spot. But
I mean, the common denominator with all of these guys is that they're good run stoppers. Sidnor, Sapp. I mean, Sapp mostly gives you the power rushing capability, the little bit of a pass rush, right?
Mm-hmm.
None of these guys are going to set the world on fire in terms of sacks, but if you are looking for your fourth end, or if there's an injury or something, you need to fill a spot. You have several different body types here, but they all have the ability to be run-stopping ends, and that's been an area of need for the Browns. We need to get stronger against the run.
Right. So
I think probably all three of those guys end up on the practice squad.
The Browns have an open spot at defensive end, do they not? Or do they have somebody? You've looked at the roster more recently than I have, Jeff. Who's in line for that fourth defensive end spot?
Yeah, so it depends. It depends on how many defensive linemen they end up keeping this year. If they're carrying a fullback, it might only be 8. But if they're keeping 9, I mean the bubble guys are Julian Okwara, Aiden Huntington, and Sam Kamara. Those are the 3 bubble guys in terms of on the defensive line. So you have to think that Okwara gives you something a little bit different in terms of the speed rush, right? So if they're looking at,
you think he's a different type of player from Fano and Sapp?
Yeah, oh yeah,
significantly as far as his rushing ability.
More of a speed rush guy, for sure. I mean, Sapp will give you some power rush. Fano's not going to give you much in terms of a pass rush at all. He's more of just a run stopping guy.
Okay.
So they're probably all competing with those 3 guys I just mentioned for the last 2 spots, if they keep 9. And you'd have to think that Huntington has the inside track right now just because of what he did last year.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If he's healthy, he's one of their 5 or 6 best D linemen. Right.
God, he was one of the best 5 or 6 special teams players last year too.
Absolutely.
Who
and
gets
he
that
contributed on offense, and
how many defensive linemen do that?
Right.
The guy's just valuable to the team. Yeah.
Right, for sure.
But he's got to have a spot on the roster.
Yeah.
I would mark that down now.
So Fano is guaranteed somewhere between $310,000 and $330,000, which is a princely sum.
It's kind of interesting because
UDFA.
It's kind of interesting because it feels like there's, like there should be a competition there for that spot, unless they just plain like what they've seen and they're pretty comfortable with just adding him to the roster.
Yeah, it doesn't guarantee him a roster spot, but it guarantees him a lot of money.
Yeah. Okay,
and maybe it makes him more willing to come back on the practice squad too.
Yeah. Well, I've got one camp invite I want to talk about, and then I'll circle back to a corner, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, Jeff. So,
okay.
James Conway, linebacker out of Fordham. Their all-time leader in tackles with 595 tackles. They once had 31 tackles in a game. All the guy does is finds the guy with the ball and tackles him.
Right.
You know, he's 6'1" or 6'2", 235, 240, something like that. You know, I think he runs like a 4.65. You know, but so he's not like good speed, not great. But man, he's a football player.
Yeah.
This guy could end up being, you know, I mean, he could end up just initially starting out being a great special teams guy. But man, this just screams like this could be a steal, and this guy could end up being a part of this team and just really helping the team out, because guys like this are what you want on your team. And I just have a feeling that this guy's going to pan out.
Yeah. We have 11 linebackers on the roster right now.
Yeah. There's competition. There's competition at a lot of spots. Yeah.
So tight end, Smurf receiver, and linebacker. We're throwing quantity at it right now. But I love this guy, and when I looked at him, the first thing that came to my mind was he is Carson Schlesinger. You know how Andrew Berry likes to duplicate players. You know, if he's got a player, he feels like he needs depth behind that guy, he goes out and finds almost an identical player. You know, similar makeup, body type, playing style, all those things. For sure, Conway and Schlesinger are they could be separated at birth in terms of their approach to the game, their contribution level, their motor, all those things, right? Love the guy.
You're not going to have to worry about this guy's work ethic.
No,
not at all.
This guy is going to, if he doesn't stick on the initial 53, this guy is going to be a practice squad superstar, and you will see him at some point in the year.
Yeah. So let me go back to corner, and a couple of the guys, Nate Evans and Michael Coates Jr., have guaranteed money. I'm going to leave those guys for you if you want to talk about them.
Okay.
DeCarlos Nicholson.
Interesting guy.
Out of USC, 6'3", 200 pounds. Excuse me. Man, this guy plays physical too, Jeff. I like the size. I like his ability to cover the bigger receivers, and that's not something that the Browns have a lot of. I could see this guy potentially, you know, helping. I guess the Browns have some of that, but you know, I could see this guy fighting for a roster spot. Definitely. Definitely. I really like that. I really like that signing. And the funny thing is, he's not the guy who got the guaranteed money out of the corners, but definitely, I'm putting a star by that guy too, and we'll see what happens. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Go ahead.
Carlos Nicholson, I love him too. Interestingly, he is an ex-quarterback, and he's pretty new to the position at cornerback. He's not played a lot back there. So he's a bit green, but the physical tools are there. The question is, can he put it together at the pro level fast enough to make the 53? As far as long shots go, the last couple of years when I've looked at the UDFAs, I've said, okay, I see a guy that I think has a really good chance of being an NFL player. And this guy has a really good chance of being an NFL player. You know, you look at Mahmoud Diabate, you look at Ronnie Hickman. I mean, those are guys that you just knew were going to play in the NFL. And I believe DeCarlos Nicholson will play in the NFL. I think it's an area where the Browns are thin in terms of DBs with length.
I mean, Tyson Campbell's big, but he's pretty much it. You know, I mean, he's a little taller, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you brought in EMAC. We have to come up with a nickname. I'm going to go with EMAC for right now because Emmanuel McNeil Warren is just too hard to say.
And EMW just doesn't flow. We need
doesn't roll
something.
off the tongue.
We need
Yeah.
something. Yeah, we're gonna have
Right.
to.
So I'm going to go with EMAC for right now till somebody
I
comes
like
up
it.
with something. That's a baseball nickname, but
It is. That's all
yeah.
right.
But for now, he is giving you the size in the backfield right now. We could use another guy, and DeCarlos Nicholson is got a good chance of being that guy.
Yeah. The guy I forgot is the safety Zion Washington, and you and I have messaged a little bit about him because this is a guy who's off the charts with the numbers as far as his
athleticism.
Athleticism. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see. I looked. I couldn't find any highlights. Nothing about this guy.
Yeah.
He played. He played at Boise State, and nobody's put anything together of his film apparently. So I have no idea if the guy can play football or not. But I think he ran he ran a 4.3 something, and and he did. At 200 pounds, he did like 19 reps on the bench, and the guy's another physical guy that it just depends on how he can play the game. But he's
right.
6'1", 208 safety. He's got got nice size, and again, he's going to face a lot of competition there because how many safeties are the Browns going to carry? But yeah.
But we know that we play a lot of these guys throughout the course of the season, and this is Andrew Berry's wheelhouse. This is defensive backs is where he finds guys. We saw it in week 17 last year. Guys stepping in and playing that most people hadn't heard of. So
I hadn't heard of.
Yeah, I think all four of these guys will at least at some point see the field for the Browns. Good chance.
Yeah, I think so. So who else do you have, Jeff? And is there anybody that I didn't go over that you had? That you had maybe even looked at in your draft prep that you're kind of surprised that the Browns ended up with?
Yeah, no, none of these guys were really on the radar in terms of prospects for the draft. I think other than Logan Fano, most of them were really not expected to be drafted. Some of them do have the physical tools. The punter, Wes Paul, big kid, really powerful leg, right?
5'2".
We've got $750,000 guaranteed to Corey Bojorquez, but he's got to stay healthy. It's not a bad thing to have a young kid like that with a really big leg sitting there ready to go. So I can see most of these guys earning spots on the practice squad. There's going to be one or two of these 22 guys that really push for a roster spot initially. It's going to be hard just because of how many rookies we've already got, rookie and second year players.
Yeah.
There's 17 of them. So it's going to be progressively harder for these UDFAs to make the roster every year as the roster gets better. But just like, Jaron Johnson, the tight end from Bowling Green, the guy's got 10 3/4 inch hands.
And 10 3/4 guys in front of him.
Well, there's a whole passel of tight ends, right? But
it's
when you think about what are we really looking for in the tight end position, and Andrew Berry, to his credit, acknowledged and recognized that the draft did not go the way he thought it would with inline tight ends, and so he was just a little bit late to the party finding somebody to fill that role this year. So we've got a lot of options to look at. And I don't think that the difference between Jiron Johnson and well, let me just pull another name out of my butt here, Sal Cannella. Or I don't think there's that much difference in these guys, right? They're going to all get a chance.
Probably not.
So yeah, I mean, you've got another cornerback in Malcolm Bell, who's got a camp invite. Another D lineman and Carter Hewitt that got a camp invite. Three linebackers, and then another quarterback in Bryson Barnes out of Utah State, who only completed like 59.9% of his passes.
Yeah, his numbers did not look very good. They may have been better than anybody on the Browns roster.
Better than anybody we had last year, yeah. So,
yeah, that's not saying a lot, but yeah.
Yeah, look, I think Michael Coates Jr. Has a good chance of fitting in as a slot guy. I mean, he's 25 years old. He's not going to grow a heck of a lot, physically or from a skill perspective. But it's an area where we don't have a lot of depth. I mean, there's enough options here that hopefully we're going to see some cream rise to the top. Harden versus Booth.
Yeah, I think those guys, I mean, are both, well, I mean, to me, they're both fighting for probably one spot on the practice squad, unless one of them really shows out and proves that they're better than, Rocket Sanders, which I'm just not seeing. I'm thinking if the Browns didn't have faith in Rocket Sanders as their third back, they probably would have drafted a guy. Don't you think, Jeff?
I would say so. Yeah,
they would have taken somebody late. I don't know that they brought either one of these guys in to really fight for a spot on the 53. I'm really not feeling that.
No. But, yeah, I think we're really looking at filling out the practice squad. And again, Harden and Booth are different players. They're different body types. They're different suitabilities to packages. So. We could see both of them make the practice squad. Just depends on how that lines up. I mean, you can only keep so many guys. There's 17 guys in the practice squad. You got to cover a lot of positions. So running back isn't typically the highest value. Those are pretty easy guys to go out and find.
There's always guys out there. I mean, honestly, Jeff, I was going to say earlier that the tight ends, I mean, I'm glad the Browns drafted the tight ends they did. Maybe Royer and the other kid they got, can make significant contributions if those are the guys that end up, making the roster. But when Sal Cannella and Blake Whiteheart were on the field, man, those guys caught the ball, and those guys were pretty significant contributors when they were on the field, and that's what you want out of your tight end. So
you don't necessarily you can't fix every position in the offseason. So we did a really good job of addressing skill positions aside from quarterback, which we knew we weren't going to be able to fix this year. So, all right, if you're still a little thin at tight end, you really don't have the guy long-term who's going to take David Njoku's snaps, that's okay for this year. We can get by for a season with a bunch of different guys, right? Knowing that maybe next year we'll prioritize that. We'll find that tremendous compliment. Maybe one of these guys rises to the surface this year, but if he doesn't, I'm confident we can go find that guy next year.
The interesting thing, correct me if I'm wrong, but each of the past, as far back as I can remember, the last 2, 3, 4 seasons, the Browns have started out under 53 with like 2 tight ends. Yeah. And then they've added tight ends as they've needed them or used guys out off the practice squad. So it'll be interesting if that changes this year, if they if they put the 2 draft picks, on the active roster, or on the 53, and or one of the other guys, it's going to be interesting because that takes spots, and they haven't done that in a long time.
Yeah. I think, again, it goes back to what Todd Monken's offensive philosophy will be. Teams throughout the NFL are using 3 tight ends more. But can you use 3 tight ends and a fullback? Enough to justify them taking up roster spots. So that has to come down to what does his offense look like, and which are you going to prioritize?
It's going to be hard.
I don't think you can keep a fullback and 3 tight ends.
A fullback, 3 tight ends, 6 wide receivers, 3 running backs.
You can't do all that.
8 or 9 linemen. You can't do all of that. You have to cut back somewhere.
Right.
That roster construction it's going to be fun to guess at, and then it's going to be fun to see how it actually comes out.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, we didn't talk about either of the offensive linemen. Did you know anything about these guys, or have you checked them out? Xavier Miller out of Auburn, or Cole Hudson? Any hope for these guys for anything going forward? Xavier Miller, I guess, is more of a right tackle. Played right tackle at Auburn.
He's probably going to end up as a guard if he makes it in the NFL. And the other guy, I honestly didn't even have him on my list.
I've got Cole Hudson, offensive line, as an invite. So.
Oh, okay.
Camp invite.
Huh. Yeah, I didn't even have him on the invite list.
Well,
I must have missed him.
Hey, I looked my stuff up right before the show, so.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe it's a recent ad.
It could be. It could be. There's always stuff changing.
Yeah. Look, I think offensive line wise, we've got with that guy 18 offensive linemen on the roster. I guess if you're going to be running 4 quarterbacks on 2 fields, you need that kind of quantity. But when it comes to really narrowing it down, it's really good for me. It's going to boil down to which of the guys from last year are we going to hang on to, and who's going to get moved because we just don't think they're going to earn a spot. So that you've got Zach Zenner, KT Leviston, and DeJuan Jones, who could any or all of them could be moved before you get to the 53.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
You've got Tevin Jenkins. They obviously liked. He's got a couple $1 million in guaranteed money, so you got to believe he's going to stick.
Yeah.
But everybody else beyond that is a question mark, and you have to kind of decide what's it going to look like. The big question for me really is center. Is Luke Whippler ready to be our starting center? Is Parker Brailsford going to push him for that job?
Right.
Or are we going to fall back onto Elton Jenkins to man that position, at least in the beginning? That will determine how the rest of the offensive line is structured and who you keep. But I got to think that Zenner and Jones and Leviston are all on the bubble right now.
I would think so. And Toolman, we have how many guys we have that can play guard, Jeff? Out of those 18, probably about 15 of them. Play
it well. I'm
joking, but I mean there are a lot of guys that can play guard.
Right.
I think they'll be okay at guard.
I think Titus Howard could play guard. Zion Johnson's a guard. Elton Jenkins' best spot is guard.
Yeah.
I think Fano could move inside easily,
Yeah.
I don't think that's not optimal.
Yeah. Tevin Jenkins. Yeah.
Yeah. So Tevin Jenkins, can play on either side. So
Yeah.
Zinner played across the line, mostly at right guard and at center last year. If they can get something out of him,
He's
good. You know, that draft is that 24 draft is looking worse and worse all the time.
I think Zach Zinner is fighting for a job this year.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's got to be.
Yeah.
Joel Bitonio still hasn't made a decision about retirement.
He's not officially on the roster. He doesn't count against the 90-man roster because he's a free agent.
True. Yeah.
So he's not signed anywhere. Like David Njoku and several other guys that were on the team last year, they're still out there. They're still available. So Joel could technically sign anywhere. I'm of the opinion that if he wanted to play another year, he would probably do it here. That's just my opinion.
I would think so, especially with the draft, with some of the additions we've made. I would think he would probably be on board with coming back to the Browns and finishing his career here. So I would think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we covered everybody, Rod. At least
I think we got it. I mean, there are other guys we could talk about, but we've covered enough.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about the long snapper that got a camp invite, stuff like that. We'll be good. So
yeah.
All right. Well, we appreciate all of the comments, guys. It's always fun mixing it up with you guys and having you guys be part of the show. So, Jeff, do you have any final comments? Words of wisdom, anything like that? And while you're thinking about that, I just want to put out that we will be on next week, also on Wednesday. Okay, rather than Thursday. So we'll see you guys Wednesday, 9:00 at that time.
I want to get something off my chest, Rod, and I shouldn't pay attention to some comments that we get and so forth. But what I put out here on this podcast is my opinion. And I don't get paid to do this. I put a lot of effort into studying things, but anyone out there certainly is free to disagree with me. What you think about a player or the organization as a whole or whatever. But I'll say that my job is not to be a shill for the Browns organization.
No.
When you tune into this podcast, you're going to get objectivity from me, and I'm going to tell you the way I see it. If you're looking for something else, there's 100 other Browns podcasts that can give you the rah-rah piece. We do that sometimes, but for the most part, we try to be somewhat professional about this. So, take that for what it's worth. And if you feel like I'm not being fair to somebody, call me out on it. But for the most part, I look at this stuff like I would any other business decision. If I had employees working for me, you have to measure up. You have to meet standards. And if you don't, I'm going to call you out on it. I've been hard on some players over the course of time as a result. And they can step up and play better, or they can move on down the road is the way I look at it. So I don't come to this intending to embarrass anybody or embarrass the organization or anything like that. I've been a Browns fan for a long ass time, and I'll always love this team, but I'm not going to make excuses for them. And if you don't like that, then I'm okay with that.
I agree with you, Jeff. We give our honest opinions here. I am a little bit more on the always positive side. That's just kind of, I'm typically a glass half full, always thinking things are going to get better. But, I'm not afraid to talk about the negative stuff. And we try
Well,
to be honest with people. And that's
my
just how we run the show.
my cynical approach to this organization has been well earned, Rod.
Well, true. I mean, and that's just part of being a Browns fan. If you've been a Browns fan for any length of time, I think that's kind of at your core. That this team has to earn something back in order to get you to believe that what's going on is really
Right.
changing things.
Yeah. Look, this is the time of year where there's tons of optimism. I get that. And people want to be upbeat. They want to have a reason to go buy the season tickets, right?
Yeah.
They want to, they want to be able to justify that to their wife or whoever, that hey, they're going to win this year, right? I don't sell tickets. I don't, I don't care about any of that. We'll go to games. We have fun. But that's their job. That's not my job.
Yeah. I agree. So, well, we appreciate everybody listening, even when, even if you're one of those people who just doesn't like to hear any negativity whatsoever.
Just listen to Rod if that's you.
I get negative occasionally. I am not a shill for this team. I just, I believe in, giving people second chances, things like that. So, I probably come off as a shill sometimes, but, same way. Love the team. Always hoping things get better. And hopefully we're on the track for that. And hopefully we'll see improvement this year. And hopefully, maybe things will be good by the time the stadium opens, if not before. So.
Well, we made a good first steps late last week with the players that we brought in. So
absolutely,
I'm all on board with the direction that we're headed in right now.
100%. Well, this has been a Browns Blitz. We thank you all for listening, and we will catch you next time.